This is Kevin Wonderland. Thank you for coming back and seeing us. This is the last of our breeders from the seed series, and we couldn't have been any happier to finish off with Bryan from Dragons with Matches. It's been an incredible series to be involved in. To be part of a craft industry and its formation in the new legal realm has been a wonderful thing. And we're so grateful that the people who watched online, the breeders who participated, and all the people who came to the parking lot to meet the breeders and to just share in all the stuff that's going down was an incredible experience. We'd like to thank Shango Las from Shaping Fire, our sponsor, for helping us put this on. I'd like to thank Dennis from Gangier Solutions for giving us tech, Will and Lynette behind the scenes for giving us all this quality work. And thank you all again for attending and being part of this. We really wanted to see the breeders catch some attention so that the farmers could start to understand really how do you begin your process, and you begin it through this. So this is a last of our craft breeders from the event, and it's a good finish because he's doing some beautiful work. So I've known him for a couple years. Like a lot of these people, informally, formally, where I'm familiar with his work, I'm familiar with products. And he's just consistently produced some really, really fire-ass products. And you're known for the Yeti, and correct, right? Yep. So you're known for the Yeti, and it just does some beautiful work. And a stunning large plant cultivator, and he's doing a lot of interesting projects and a lot of work. And I'm gonna let him talk about himself and his background and where he goes from there. But it's a pleasure to have you on, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bryan.
It's an honor to be here. Well, I got out here about 22 years ago and didn't really plan on being a cannabis person for my main career. And I followed the Grateful Dead out here, in fact, and just kind of stumbled upon Humboldt County. It grabbed me real quick. As soon as I got here, I think like most people, it just grabs you, but sometimes it grabs some certain people a little more than others. And it sucked me right in, and I dove in head first. I did several years of the guerrilla growing, you know, how a lot of us cut our teeth out in the woods, monkeys in the bush, as we used to call it.
Soil haulers.
Yeah, a lot of work, little payout, but it taught us what we know now, and it got me to where I am today.
We're in Humboldt. Let's see. When I first came to Humboldt, I came to Humboldt in '92. I first came into Arcata, so I had buddies and crew in Soham that I knew prior to coming here, but I was living in Arcata, and Arcata in '92 was pretty cool.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
definitely.
Arcata was pretty cool in '92. Where'd you settle into? Where was your spot when you got here in the original?
When I first got here, I pretty much rolled into town in my VW bus with no brakes and went right to the plaza.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Right, and then I learned about Willow Creek pretty much right away because I'm a coastal kid from New Jersey, and I needed that. I needed some warm weather, and I was surprised that there was no warm weather on the coast when I got here.
Totally. And Willow was nice to just jump on 299 back in. I remember, rolling, and it was so underpopulated at that time.
Literally the first day I went into Willow Creek, I saw the quintessential redwood summer fight right in front of me, loggers versus hippies.
Yeah.
And that's what it was back then. It was really kind of a scary place to be at, but I saw the beauty in it, like most people, obviously. And I was lucky enough to just kind of embed myself in it. And I spent several months living in my van at Mad River Beach, trying to figure out a way to get into the industry. And eventually using Grateful Dead connections and things like that, I just kind of worked my way into it. I was lucky enough to rent a house, my first house out in Redwood Valley, about halfway to Willow Creek out there. And though I wasn't allowed to grow there, you know how we did it back then.
No one was ever allowed to grow.
Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say that I learned how to grow there. I would have to say that I really fine-tuned most of my, at least initial habits and practices indoor. You know, when we had our 4,000 watts to freedom.
Oh, totally. But the thing was, you know, at that time in Humboldt, like people don't catch that, Humboldt at one time was this massive outdoor production zone. I mean, it was a legend. And then the helicopters came, and I mean, we're talking they're flying over your house. They're in every neighborhood. It was really intensive, just overflight. And so you had to really shift into indoor, and that's what drove I think the California indoor situation was so many of us that had to move inside, and then we started to push it, and so many people started seeing the applicability of indoor cultivation. But the same thing too, all through the 90s, I was running heavy indoor too. We would run outdoor, but on the periphery of scenes, a lot smaller scale, way smaller plants, way more guerrilla. There's no word for the guerrilla on it.
Absolutely.
Unbelievably hidden.
A lot more bush growing, where
Yeah,
you'd put it in the base of a bush.
Yeah, up in trees, anything, you'd match colors. I remember we had friends that were using child-safe paints so they could put a little brown tint on the plants. But it was a radical difference. It all shifted inside. What drove you into do the breeding?
I think that once you get it kind of into this business, you just and the bug does grab you, you're just ready to try anything with it. And I really got into breeding when I first got the most stable piece of property that I had, and that's Scarlet Fire Farms, the one that I live on now.
Gotcha.
And I moved on there about 10 years ago, and right at that time is when people really started getting interested in seeds. One of my mentors, who I still look up to today, gave me a vial of seeds, and I started playing with them and just realized how much more diversity you have working with seeds and the sun.
Oh yeah, no, it was incredible to make the train. I remember, my mother's a scientist, right? So I come from this real heavy New England blue collar background, criminal blue collar background, but Mom was a scientist. So I apply science to whatever I did as I went forward. But when I shifted over to biological outdoor as my full methodology, it was like a release of technology, and it was an embrace of the unknown. Because as much as we think we know, we really know little.
Absolutely.
And it's this incredible response the plant has outside that I don't care how much indoor work you do, it doesn't do the same thing outdoor. No. It's an animal outside.
I had to be convinced to some degree about outdoor.
Yeah,
for many years I thought, oh no, indoor is the way. But that same mentor was the person who said, well, just watch this and see.
And I was known for indoor.
Right.
Same thing. I had a really good reputation for large commercial operations of indoor flower. And so I was running, this was when all the diesel ops were running, so I was really good at doing high-level indoor production. And when we were able to go back outside, it was this shift over, and then it was the change when you went from 15-gallon bags up to a 600-gallon bag. And then you went,
or in the ground.
Yeah, in the ground directly.
In a big trench or something.
Yeah, big trenches, yeah. And it was a radical change.
Absolutely. It's a different creature.
What was the first lines you were playing with 10 years ago, when you started Dragonfire? What were you messing around with?
When I first started around, I had the Black Domina Snow Cross that I was just messing around with. I sent out to Amsterdam to get some critical mass. I was playing around with that for a little while. I hear it seems like that one's big again, because I think it's the CBD. It's high CBD.
They did the CBD project. The critical masses with Scott Blakey out of Shanti Bob, and so he hooked up with the CBD crew. I think it's his organization, and they started taking all the strains from Mr. Nice and blasting them with that high CBD male.
Right.
So all that stuff started becoming CBD lines. But yeah, the critical. I used to run the critical years ago too. I had a really nice Black Domina that was hella peppery and spicy.
Yeah,
really neat four-way.
I have a really nice one right now
and
that
Snow,
I've been playing around.
And
That's
Snow,
what I was just gonna say.
I had the original Snow was gorgeous. It was one of the original true Humboldt hash plants.
Oh, it was so hashy.
Rock hard, just ferocious high.
Scissors to take a bong hit.
Yeah, ferocious high. Yeah. So you still got your hands on that one?
I don't have my hands on that one. That's definitely one on the bucket list for sure. There's a couple of those, but that one is definitely one that is legendary for Humboldt County.
No doubt. Yeah.
I enjoyed that one a lot.
It was one of the first, they call things branded strains, but the Snow came right before the Perp.
Right.
And so the Snow was the most dominant strain on the Humboldt indoor until the Perp came. And then when the Perp came, it took everything out. And then OG took everything else out.
Right.
And now, who knows?
And this was back when there was no names for things yet.
Yeah.
There was names, but it wasn't really that important yet.
No,
so
but the Snow is...
The Snow, and
the
it wasn't...
Trainwreck, the Snow, some of those were some of the first ones. The Orange Crush,
right.
The Salmon Creek Big Bud. There were certain ones that started getting names because they were unique for what they did.
Well, and that Salmon Creek Big Bud was legendary and just such a story. Yeah. Absolutely. But the Snow was never called Humboldt Snow back then. It was just the Snow.
Just the Snow, yeah, straight Snow.
So I don't really even know what the genetics are. Do you know?
No, I don't. I've never... And I never knew. I just knew that I got a cut out of this cat named Pistol out of Petrolia.
Oh, yeah.
And so me and this dude Pistol out of Petrolia were buddies, and he hooked me up. And at that time, it was hot, and it was the dominant cut. And if you had snow, you were like you were special.
Yeah, that was whatever.
It was it was really, really nice.
It was the purple punch of its day or something.
Yeah, the purple punch doesn't have any power though.
It doesn't have the power.
The purple punch
right?
is stunning, and in the mouth it's rich, but it just doesn't deliver. And so that's the only problem. Oh, we got a question. We get so caught up in the strains. What do you got?
What is kind of strain related? It says, do you think Skittles changed the game in the Emerald Triangle?
Personally, I don't think it changed the game. I think maybe it broadened it to some degree.
It's a continuation.
Yeah.
Because see, the Humboldt, what people don't catch about the Emerald Triangle is that the Emerald Triangle, Humboldt specifically, well, I'll get, because I don't know Mendo and Trinity, but Humboldt County is unique in the fact that Humboldt County will shift its entire production amounts based off of what moves. And so Humboldt, someone goes, what does Humboldt grow? Whatever's moving. Humboldt moves whatever's moving, and whatever's Humboldt is moving is what is moving in the world. So when Humboldt says, hey, this strain's hot, and Humboldt moves it, they move it at such a quantity that it changes the strain, but it doesn't change Humboldt. Humboldt was already big. Do you know what changed Humboldt? The perp. The perp changed Humboldt because Humboldt was getting buried by Canadian cheap indoor. We were getting creamed. And this is the right before 9/11. So right before 9/11, when 9/11 came and it shut the borders off and it shut off. And send the whole duration of the smoke. And when you bought a bag in a car, you could distinctly tell what it was quickly. So when the deals, this is prior to the dispensary rise.
Yeah.
Perp was unique. Perp changed Humboldt, but nothing else changed Humboldt but the perp. The perp was the one strain that I still believe absolutely saved Humboldt from just collapsing, because Humboldt was having transition issues moving into the new industry because we were still growing Red Dog and getting 44 for it. Right. Red Dog was these huge soda can buds of red hair that the market would accept for an unbelievable price way back in the day, but now you couldn't even give it away. And so Humboldt had been spoiled, so to speak, and the Canadians had cheap electricity and killer genetics, and they were able to move it across the border easily, and they were undercutting West Coast price by almost $1,800 a pound. So the cost differential was phenomenal, and Canada was just kicking the shit out of California. And when the perp came out, it drove Humboldt County right back into power because nobody could produce enough of it, and Humboldt started producing basically metric tons a week. I mean, it was chipping. So the Skittles, it's an awesome strain, but it's just another awesome strain in a list.
Right.
You know?
Someone wants to know what will be the next craze.
Oh, who knows?
My crystal ball is broken.
Yeah, and you know what the next craze is what it's like it's always been. It's what's unique and interesting. And so what made people don't catch that strains. This is something I researched for years, because it's a question. I call it the $1 billion question. What makes a $1 billion strain? And what makes a $1 billion strain is timing, because if the purple was out at a different time period, it wouldn't have made a difference. But because all dope deals were still occurring through the window of a car, the perp could instantly be recognized different others, because the color of the perp plus the orange hair and the shape of the orange hair allowed this incredible recognition. So all of a sudden, you start having the ability for things to move. And man, I'm over here lost in my own thought for a second.
Wow.
but what you have happen is the perp goes in a piece. Why was Trainwreck popular? Trainwreck was popular because you had this beautiful cerebral plant that was different than other varietals to such a degree that it stood out. It wasn't a skunk. It was a Southeast Asian that was unique. So it was another strain in Humboldt that stood out.
Of it.
And it grew great. 5-pound white ball, no mold.
And tied down.
And in a knotty, ugly bush. And so these strains, but it was a time period. Trainwreck not any longer, but in hybrids. Perp not any longer, but in hybrids. OG Kush was more of on a terp kind of drive, because if you take a look at the U.S. opiate market, it's massive, and as people started to get pulled from opiates where you addict them, this is a theory, but it's a theory based off of cash register and running dispensaries for about a decade. So I see all these people smoking OG Kush. I ask 1,000 of them, why you smoke OG Kush? And the majority of them are telling me because they have an opiate issue. So it was interesting because all these people that I didn't expect to be OG Kush smokers were smoking OG Kush. So OG Kush has this neat terpene combination that lets people who have opiate issues gain an effective relief from using OG-based stuff. So we're going to call it chem-based, fuel-based, myrcene-based. So you see this huge direction that way in the U.S., but you don't see that globally. So people love those strains because it's debilitating, but it's not such a global phenomenon. It's where is this thing occurring? And so what is the next billion-dollar strain is what is the next strain that's going to cover enough people that are going to want to buy it in that quantity. Now the Skittle is a beautiful varietal, but as a plant it's weak, and it's a poorly sourced plant, meaning that you go through 1,000 cultivars and you're going to find all these combinations, and maybe you should have chose one with a notch less terp but 10 times more growability. And then you'd see it in kind of function. It's like Louis XIII as an OG. You can barely get it to root sometimes. The average person, if you don't do it right, won't root. So you don't see it in any kind of large expansion. Right. Albert Walker's another super strain. It's tough to root, so you don't see it spread. Same,
Even OG was kind of that way with it. It didn't really take off right off of the bat.
Not right off the bat.
At least, everybody wanted
in the
but
LA
for growing
market,
it
but it was in the LA market first. Because you had such an opiate-driven piece,
right.
But then the rest of us had to go into it eventually because it was the only product. Just like you didn't want to do perp. Perp changed indoor because everybody started in really investing in cold rooms. Because in order to get the perp to really change, you needed to bring your temp a little bit down.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, the quality of the grow room expanded dramatically to become a perp-friendly piece. And so whatever's going to happen next is going to be, what do we see? Where do we see it? We see right now billion-dollar strains is, we'd say Canatonic. AC/DC's a billion-dollar strain because every 18-to-1 is basically a knockoff of that or stuff that, was worked. And so it's just that one person isn't making the money off of it. See, so the strain generates the $1 billion, but not one individual makes the money off of it. The question is, who's going to come up with something that they're going to be able to hold as a patentable strain and then derive money off it in time?
Right.
That's the question, and who controls that? So it's tough because the trends move, and we're talking about a market in the United States that's massive. Just talk U.S. alone. And just within the U.S., you have a Florida market that's radically different than New York, radically different than Texas, radically different than Washington, radically different than Humboldt. So if you're moving to all those places, you're selling different products. OG doesn't move to all those. Sometimes they want a different thing, and depends. So where's your sales and where is your actual explosion going to be will determine what it is initially. So whatever might blow in California, even though it'll be hot in other places, it might not grab and take hold the same way.
It's true.
What you got?
Being a huge fan of fruity, flavorful sativa, how do you feel cultivators like the Tangie, and what is your favorite sativa?
What you got?
I feel like my favorite sativa, I'd have to say, would probably be a haze of some sort. Maybe, possibly, I don't know. I really have a few favorites. I would like the Durban Poison. That's one of my favorites. It's got that sweet taste, that recognizable flavor. That's why I used it with my Yeti OG to create the Scarlet Fire, because I saw a lack of sativa hybrids in the market, and there's a big demand for it. And I've learned several different demands. Recently, actually, I had someone come up to me and said that he had problems breathing through his nose, and that the Durban terps is what really...
The what's the word I'm looking for? Camphines. The camphines in some of the cheeses do that too.
Right.
What's it in Durban that does that? It's the anise tone in it, but there's something it's the specific terpenes that serve as sinus clearers.
Decongestant.
Yeah,
He
it's
said
incredible.
that it really helped him a lot.
Yeah.
He said he had some surgery from a car wreck, and he lost a lot of the nasal senses, I guess, and it helped him a lot. And that's kind of the stuff that I'm reaching for, is to try to help people. Of course, I'm trying to create the next best strain too, but that is what gives you the reason to keep going. But as far as the sativa strain, I'd have to say probably the Durban Poison would be on the top of the list.
Yeah, especially if the problem with some of the other sativas is they're so long flowering that the market can't afford to really pay the difference on it. So it's really tough for the grower to grow it. But Tangie's popular anything to do, what did the people who did the best research on terps is the tobacco companies. So tobacco companies, they know the most about terps. And so they know that if they're giving you grapefruits, they're giving you oranges, they're giving you citruses, they're working on an addictive response, the most addictive response. And so that's why when they go after the e-cigs, those directions grab you. But once we started to understand that from the research and why certain terpenes are attractive, that's what Tangie is. So Tangie got this awesome orange, just like the Skittle.
Yeah.
It turns you on in the mouth and you get all excited, but about 7 seconds later it leaves the room and you wonder if you even smoked. And you're like, did it happen? And for real, I mean, it has no residual. And so it's great to put into things. So I think that stuff like the Tangie, the reason why you see it so popular is because you get this flair on the high, but it woven into other strains. And I have the tangerine skunk it came from. Just like I used to run a lot of these orange Calio hybrids and stuff back in the day, but the same thing. They didn't have any power.
Right.
So they didn't really have it. Then the extraction market exploded it. But now even people who are hitting extraction realize, hey, when I hit just this citrus level, I jump up, but I jump right back down.
Yeah,
so it's a
flavor
blend.
of the week type of a thing.
Flavor of the week, and there's all kinds of OGs, different kinds of tangies, different tones and flavors, and there's the blood orange, and they're really, really rich and interesting. But I think it's almost like a splash of the citrus with other complex pieces gives you a much more developed quality effect. And so once, anything will move quickly, but then what do people want over time? What do they look for? And if you're looking for many different things, but through the terpenoid expression, we can have a full explosive lift and then settle back down to a very workable, stable, long-term effect.
Right.
And
that's why I like the Sour Tangie a lot. That cross is a really good connection because for growability, it gives it some height, it gives it some size, a little bit to work with. For smokability, it's got the gas in the back seat kind of with that little bit of a bite to it. And then that's where you see where you get the effects along with the terpenes.
Yeah, the quality in both ends
sides,
of it.
yeah. So I think hybrids, of anything, kind of pull the best. Look at your dogs.
Yeah, true. You just got to be able to kind of look. You got some stuff?
Yeah, what's the difference between canatonic and AC/DC?
None. AC/DC is a phenotype of canatonic. So, if there was the John Smith family, that would be the canatonic family. AC/DC is a sister. She's one of the children. She's a progeny of that. So canatonic was a line that was created and brought over in seed form. And from those seed form out came a whole bunch of different CBD plants. But the most famous was AC/DC.
There's another one here. In your opinion, what strain is the most consistent of THC and yield that is relatively easy to grow and predictable?
From seed form or from clone form? Do it from seed form. We're going to answer it for you. Do it from seed
And
form.
what was the question again?
What's your dankest shit that you can grow that's consistent? Most consistent, morphologically speaking,
Oh
probably.
man, that's a tough one. I would have to say, any of the chem dogs, pretty much any of those chem dog crosses are all going to pretty much grow the same and produce. However, there is some issues within each phenome. Yeah.
Basically, he's saying that they're pretty consistent, that he's not seeing too much radical morphological differences. But just like with anything, you got 5 brothers in the family. One of the brothers you never let hold your wallet. The other brother they never let hold your wife. Some brothers you don't let in your life, and some brothers you just love. And then there's the brother that is taking care of you. So within every 5 brothers, there's going to be those, and that's the same thing with cannabis strains. So it's any of the stuff that they're working with that's in those chem lines are going to be pretty solid and breed-wise, and then it's just trying to dial in your pieces. From cloma form, you have a lot of options. It just depends, where you're from. I think people have to always first look at what your limitations are with your farm. So first your location creates your first limit, and then next is you, because what is your skill level? And then once we start to be able to dial those 2 things in, we start to say, okay, we have a place that can grow, the season is this and this, my skill level is this and this, my infrastructure, meaning the tools I have to work with, are this and this, and it starts to say, okay, we can work with this body of plants. And so call the shop sometime and just you can ask that question and we can kind of dial it in. But basically, get those things answered first.
Yeah.
Another one here. With the expanding extract market, will the flower market stay strong?
It has to.
It'll just change. You're going to see better quality flowers.
Right.
I think what you're going to see is, you know, like right now, when you open a bag of grass, you're looking at, you know, the whole bag. But I think in a minute, you're going to be looking at like the top 20% of the plant. Just beautiful flower presentation.
Absolutely.
And then everything else can. But you guys are already working on that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because the stuff that you're putting in bags is gorgeous.
Yeah,
I was over at the plant the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I was over at your new packaging plant where you guys are doing, and I got sent home with a bunch of gear, man.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's all about the bag appeal.
Yeah, yeah,
you
no, it's
you
beautiful.
get
It's trying to get premium. So the flower market will remain. And the thing about it is that people don't understand is no matter how much people scream about, you're gonna want extract. You're gonna want extract. If you're a cannabis user, at some point in time, you'll smoke a joint.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, you're going to go, wow, CO2 doesn't really do it quite like that. Yeah. And you're going to find that CO2 is a delivery system, BHO is a delivery system, rosin, hash, flower. They're all delivery. And they all have subtly different effects on you and how your body works. And you're going to find what you like best. And don't listen to science. Science a few years ago said the cannabis was bad for you and you shouldn't smoke it. So I'm not putting my faith into... about what to do. Just remember, they're all different, and it's okay.
I mostly smoke concentrates, mainly because I have asthma, but I'll never, ever be able to take flowers out of my life, because exactly that fact, you go for maybe 2 weeks without smoking a joint, and you're just smoking concentrates, and then you do twist that one joint, and you're like, oh, there it all is.
It puts it together.
Yeah.
Cannabis is complex, and I don't think we know how to use it right, because we haven't been allowed to use it freely.
Right.
We've been so limited on the use of it, and for guys like us that have been living in it, man, we basically freak weirdos, you know, hanging out with other freak weirdos, living in private so that we can do our thing. Well, it doesn't let you really understand how to use it correctly, you know, in over time.
Absolutely.
You know, so that just like we're seeing now, how much of your plant is made into all the different products. So I grow so much cannabis for myself every year, and so much becomes flower, so much becomes extract, so much becomes topical, so much becomes material for edible, and then it allows me to have this incredible usage of my crop. But like still, I'm still learning. I've been doing it for 38 years. You know?
That's what I love about the concentrate thing, is it's kind of the way the Native Americans would look at taking down a buffalo. They would use every single piece of that animal.
The leaves get we use the leaf for juicing, and then we ferment all the other pieces. It doesn't.
Right.
It can really be a closed loop system. Some of the closed loop farms that I'm checking out are incredible how they operate, and I'm just like, whoa, we could do some neat stuff. Yeah.
I just started getting into the fermentation, the
Me
Korean
too.
nature farming.
Yeah,
and
we're
it's
just it's
Dr.
fascinating.
Cho, it is. It's so fascinating,
fascinating.
and it's all you create it. So how much cooler is that?
And it's self-loop and clean.
Yeah, and I get to use all my green waste, and I'm finding myself hiking in the woods more because I'm out wildcrafting and foraging for different things that I can throw in.
We've been mining microbes. We've been doing microbe mining and
yeah, it's really boosted. Like it kind of recharged whatever I have in me that makes me want to do this. Is like this new creation, throwing out all those bottles. With each bottle, it's like
freedom.
kicking cigarettes or something like that.
No, all the stuff we've been playing with, trying to figure out the simplest method to make it work has been neat, because we can chase technology, but the problem is it starts to become unreachable for the average person, and therefore, as awesome as it is, it doesn't really affect cannabis people the way you'd like it to, because the majority of us are average people.
Yeah, the way this industry has been going is that it is really easy to get caught up in trying to chase that next piece of technology, and you're gonna, 9 times out of 10, you could get driven out of it or drawn away from it. Too much, too fast.
You're relying on it. You're relying on it, and you're not relying on skill.
Right.
And I think that people believe that you can get. I'm somebody that's from a craft background. And so my whole family was craft people, meaning, high-level construction, high-level creation. And that's a process. And then it kind of got taken out of the U.S. in general, to where you don't really see people doing blue-collar work with any pride, meaning not that the people who do it aren't proud, it's just that nobody's proud to say they know anybody who does it.
Right.
If you're someone who's a construction worker, you're kind of looked at as if you were a failure. And it's such a strange thing for me, because I come from such a long history of craft construction people, and that's what this cannabis is it's craft, and it's allowing people to start to recreate, just like craft beer. even though I'm not really a drinker, craft beer allowed this recreation of people to find an emotional connection to something, to drive to a higher level, purer, more refined approach. What's the essence of it? And it took off across the entire United States. I remember when the first craft brewery opened up right down the street.
Yeah.
And it was Red Tail Ale. They were the first one in America. And then I watched this entire industry explode in the years that I've been in Cali. And I know that could be with cannabis also, in the sense that when you start to get all these people together that can communicate, share ideas and concepts, and figure out, hey, how do we simplify this to remove the margin and decrease the damage to the environment, you got a win-win. That's real craft.
The hard part now is too much information, filtering it out. I'm sure when you got into it, there was nobody really there. When I got into it in Arcata 22 years ago, there was one grow store. You know, you weren't even allowed to say that. And that was a little hydroponic store.
Yeah, the movers and all,
Yeah, and you weren't allowed to talk about anything, and the products were limited, and you just kind of had to get a book or just get out there and throw something in the ground and try it.
Totally.
I chose to throw something in the ground and try it. I've always said that I've Forrest Gumped my way through this in some way or another. Is that just luck, I think.
Yeah, we bumbled our way through.
Exactly.
But that's all right, though. What did Edison do? He said, I failed 1,000 times making the bulb, but I can tell you 1,000 ways not to make a bulb. and
there's 1,000 ways to grow a cannabis plant.
And there is, and it's just trying to be able to explore all the options. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say one more time, thank you so much for all the participants who've come and put the time in to listen to the lectures and to come in and meet the breeders, and just to support craft culture in general. It's been a fantastic experience, and it turned out far better than we ever expected, and we're grateful for all the support. We'd like to thank Shango Las one more time, our sponsor from Shape and Fire. He does a killer podcast. I just listened to the one from Eric from Forever Flowering, so chips. It was a good one. I'd like to thank Will, and I'm having a fade, Lynette, for all the support and help me with this. It's too many names to remember. It's hard to do this. People who do this for a living and speak on a mic, boy, I respect you, boy. It's tough. And thanks to Dennis Park, our technical consultant, and my friend in general, just for giving me good guidance on this project. I'd like to thank all the staff at the shop for putting up with all this stuff and assisting on all this. And this was actually Pedro and Sarah's idea, our general manager and just the crew that keeps an eye on the shop. They came up with it and said, hey, listen, this would be a good thing to do, is we'll put up a seed event so we can get some coverage on these people. And I said, hey, let's stream it and start to record it. So all this stuff will be recorded on the Ganjier. So all these interviews and all this information can be sourced down the road, and it's really an awesome thing to be part of. And I just want to thank everyone, and I want to thank you.